This is Media Ethics Lecture 1-1. What is ethics and why should you care? Let's begin with a definition of ethics. Now, there's a formal and an informal definition. The formal definition is this: the branch of philosophy dealing with right and wrong. Philosophy means the study of knowledge, and ethics is one branch of it. Other branches are logic and epistemology. Now, there's an informal definition, which is basically doing the right thing, even when no one is looking. Now, another point of interest, the word ethics is usually treated as a singular when discussing the field of ethics, and as a plural when discussing collections of individual principles. My ethics are quite flexible. An interesting question: are ethics and morals the same thing? Now, often people use the words interchangeably, and there is no firm consensus on this. But generally, morality usually refers to something dealing with prevailing customs. Now, infidelity, for example, you would generally refer to someone being unfaithful as immoral rather than unethical. However, many people use the words interchangeably and synonymously, and they're not wrong. Are ethics laws and rules the same thing? No, they're not. Now, laws are usually defined as something that is passed by legislators or regulators, and they carry the strictures of punishments. In other words, a law can send you to jail. A law can cause you to be fined. Rules are usually defined as something set by individuals and organizations. They do not carry government sanction. In other words, you can't go to jail for violating the rules of your employer, but you can be fired. Now, why do we have ethics laws? That word is used a lot. They're basically laws that deal with ethics, but ethics and laws are not the same thing. We use the word ethics to define the type of law, but again, don't confuse ethics and law because they're different things, and rules are different things. Now, all these are often outlined in what are called codes of ethics. We'll be looking at different codes of ethics, but think of ethics as obedience to the unenforceable, and think of codes as descriptions of those ethics. Now, the codes, as we'll see in a second, may carry the weight of enforcement in terms of you being fired or disciplined by your employer. Now, if we have laws, why do we need ethics? Why can't we just write everything down? Well, it's impossible to have a law that covers every situation. And also, some would argue, and there's something to this, that we don't want to live in a society where all of human conduct is regulated and punishable. Sometimes, in fact often, ethics is a matter of taste and judgment. A good example, which we'll be looking at in later lectures, is publishing a gruesome photo, say a photo of a terrorist attack or a crime scene. There's no law that I'm aware of publishing a photo that is distasteful and shows gore that upsets people. That's where we get into the realm of ethics. Is this the right thing to do? Now, we talked about codes of ethics. What then are codes of ethics? Codes are drawn up by organizations, often professional organizations. They are not laws, but again, they could be grounds for workplace discipline, and they could be used against you in a court of law if you're sued for some legal action. And that's why it is thought that many organizations are reluctant to have ethics codes, because they can be used in court. An attorney could say, well, you're a reporter and you violated your code of ethics when you did this, if you are being sued, let's say, for libel. Now, codes of ethics often cover such topics as truth-telling, not hurting people, relationships with sources, conflicts of interest, balance, fairness, and context. In other words, representing something accurately. Even if it's true, you don't take it out of context. I think a good code to start with: Google on NYU Journalism Handbook for Students. There's no point in trying to write out the URL. Just Google on that. You'll find it. It'll be the first thing coming up. This code is written by Adam Pennenberg, who incidentally is featured in one of the films that we'll be watching. It covers areas of conduct related to both students and journalists. So take a look at the code and you'll find that it features many different discussions. Among the topics are integrity, including integrity of student work, in other words, not plagiarizing, not handing in the same paper twice, dealing with sources, using the work of others, fact-checking, issues related to privacy, impersonation, undercover reporting, and conflicts of interest. Conflict of interest, that'll be a subject of an upcoming lecture. That basically means reporting on something when you have a vested interest or a stake in it. There are several more topics in the NYU Code. I'd urge you to look them over. Libel, which is the law relating to defamation, damaging someone's character. Plagiarism, fabrication, meaning making things up, and use of social media. Social media has become a very hot-button ethical issue. Take a look at another code, the Society of Professional Journalists. Google on SPJ, Ethics Code. You'll find that it covers many of the same topics. Among the headings are accuracy, context, relationships with sources, undercover work, fairness and respect, and minimizing harm. Now, why is all this important? There are a number of reasons. Probably the top of the list is you don't want to hurt people by mistake or on purpose. You don't want to get yourself or your organization into trouble. Damage to your reputation, especially in an ethical issue, can be irreparable. You may never get over it. Seriously, if you commit some sort of ethical infraction, that might be the first thing that comes up in a Google search on you for the next year, the next 2 years, or forever. And a larger point, sort of an abstraction, you want people to trust you so that you can do your job better. We need trust in media. I think we all agree on that. Trust in media is essential for a democratic society to function. So, why is an ethics class important? Well, as we've discussed, a code cannot cover every situation. There are nuances that you'll have to figure out for yourself, but you don't want to have to keep reinventing the wheel and starting from ground zero every time you face an ethical situation. Remember this, learning from experience is often painful. The easy way is to learn from the painful experience of others. Okay, the topic of the next lecture will be how ethics has been debated for centuries and what we can learn from the experience of others and how the process of making an ethical decision is more or less the same, even if the circumstances are different.